All right. Welcome, everyone. It's Budding Gardeners, Busy Bees, a program from the Garden Club of Jacksonville. Can I get a big round of fun and applause? Everybody's excited to be here. Yay. My name is Denise Reagan. I'm the executive director of the Garden Club, where you are right now. This big building and everything you see all the way down to the river is part of the Garden Club of Jacksonville. I'm here with Jill Zarletta, our marketing and membership manager, and she was one of the people who probably checked you in this morning. We can only do programs like this with the help of funders like the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. And so we have to thank them for every day for making programs like this possible. So thank you to the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. I'd also like to thank the chairs, our co-chairs of the Budding Gardeners programs. They've been working so hard to put together really great programs throughout the year. So we do one of these every month. And so Maureen Bagaco and Jean Moyer, who is actually here in person. Jean, wave to everybody back there. Hi, Jean. We're waving to you. Look up, Jean. Hi, everybody's waving. Okay. And here are a couple of the programs that are coming up. So next month, on September 17th, we have Budding Gardeners Gnome Tea Party. So you're going to plant a little garden, a little like container garden, and you're going to put a gnome in it, and you're going to make a little house for him. And there's going to be a really fun tea party as part of that. So if that interests you, you should sign up for that. Okay, so you can do that on our website. That's September 17th. And then in October, we have a Halloween themed program. It's called Meet the Beetles. And we're going to tell you all about the friendly beetles that are out there. And we're going to have some here in person that you can pet and you can look at. And if you're too scared to pet them, it's okay. But there'll be lots of programs related to beetles. So please come to that. That's October 8th. And then in November, we have Sunflower Power. And that's all about sunflowers and how beneficial they are. They are not just pretty plants. They do so much more for the environment. And they create beautiful blooms, but they also create seeds that you can eat. So come to Sunflower Power, and that is November 12th. And then the last program of this year is Jolly Greens. It's December 10th, and you're going to learn how to make an arrangement using greens. And we have a flower show that weekend. And so all of your projects will be entered in the flower show, and your family can come see your entry. How cool is that? Right? So lots of fun things coming up. Go to our website, check it out. We'd love to have you. If you're not a member of the Garden Club, it's always a good time to become a member, because if you're a member of the Garden Club, programs like Budding Gardeners become free. So if you are interested in any of those programs coming up, it might be worth your while. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mika Hardison. Mika co-founded the Herban Bee with her husband, Octavius Carr. They're an urban beekeeping company and neighborhood farm. They raise bees, collect and sell honey, and make handcrafted soaps. They regularly complete bee removals and relocate distressed and at-risk bees. Mika and Octavius promote bee conservation by teaching children like you the important role that bees play in the environment. You're going to learn so much about them today. If you have questions, we have a microphone, and Christy has the microphone. So you want to raise your hand, and then Christy's going to go to you. Mika's going to recognize you and point you out so that you can get your question on the recording, because we want to get it so that when you watch the recording later on our blog, you'll hear yourself. All right. So please help me in giving a big round of applause, welcoming Mika Hardison.
Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. I'm so excited. Yay. I talked to a lot of you before we started, Anya and Shayla and Kevin and Macy and London. And so many of you have so much information about bees. So I want you to feel free to share everything that you know about bees. Ask all the questions that you want to ask, because this is your program. Okay. All righty. So to start off, I was impressed by how much so many of you know about bees. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing or not, but does anybody want to share what they know about bees? Because we've got some experts. Henry, you're up.
I know why bees have stingers.
Why?
It's to defend themselves in case of emergency. So when you try to hurt the bee, they will use the stinger on you. to sting you.
That
then-
is so right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Henry. And that's important to know because bees typically sting only defensively, not offensively. So when you're out and about, I'll be right with you. So when you're out and about, she has a comment next. So when you're out and about and a bee is buzzing around you, how would you make that bee maybe be more inclined to sting you? By doing what? Anya? Anya. Oh, Anya, stand up. We'll be right back over there.
You, like keep on like trying to hit it or
Correct. Right.
messing around.
Exactly. Thank you, Anya. So you don't want to make the bee feel defensive or have to defend themselves. So if you're surrounded by bees and you're not feeling comfortable, the best thing to do is just calmly walk away, hands down, and move to another area, because that bee is not there to sting you. That bee is there to collect food for their family, right? So all of this is just going to make it worse. Thank you, Anya. Okay, there was a question over here. Oh, yeah. So this is my helper, Kinley. Oh, wow. This is my helper, Kinsley. Kinsley is my granddaughter, so that makes it extra bad that I just messed up her name. And she is going to pass out stickers. So as you participate, we're going to give you a cool bee stickers, and they are cool. Yeah. Okay. Coming over here.
Well, what we know about bees is that they make honey for us.
Mm-hmm.
They collect food for their hive.
Mm-hmm.
And there is also a boy bee that you don't see very often.
It's good. Wow. What's her name?
Tegan.
Say it again.
Tegan.
Oh, that is very, very good. Those are some great facts. There are male bees, and they are called drones. Go ahead.
They are called drones,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't help very much of the hive.
Hello.
They don't have a stinger to protect the hive. They don't protect the hive.
Hello. So that's some important information there. So hives are 97, 98%. I'll be right with you, London. Just give me one moment. Hives are 98 to 97% female, right? Male bees called drones are only about 2 to 3% of the hives, and she is exactly right. They don't do much. You know, they kind of hang out. They don't go collect food. They don't protect the hive. They don't participate in the chores really in any way. Their job is just to help with creating more bees for the hive. So they actually mate with the queen, and that's it. So from that point forward, they're just kind of sitting back, taking it in, reaping the rewards. But an interesting thing about those drones is that when resources get slim, so in the summertime, we see lots of flowers and there's lots of nectar and so many food sources for bees to consume. But as the season goes on and it gets colder and the flowers are not blooming and there's not a lot out there to eat, resources are scarce in the hive, and guess what happens with the drones? Anya. That's right. Repeat that on the mic.
They get kicked out of the hive.
They're booted. They're out of there. They're out of there. They're not participating. They're not contributing. And the very interesting thing about bees is that you would think that when they put all of the males out, that they would really be in trouble, because from that point forward, what about next season? Or what about when they need to make more bees? How will they get more? Well, the interesting thing, or one of the interesting things about bees, is that queen, she can decide to lay a male or a female. So really, just as soon as they're put out, when resources are back plentiful and they can afford to have some slackers in the hive, they're back. Yep. London in the back.
Aren't drone bees supposed to build a hive?
Drone bees do not build a hive. No, no, they don't. The worker bees do that, and they're female. Did you get that with the stickers? Okay, gotta give London a sticker. All right, let me know if you didn't get your sticker, guys. Okay, Hunter has one more, and then we're gonna get into the presentation.
How does a queen bee decide to lay a female or a male?
That's a great question. So Hunter wants to know, how does the queen bee decide whether or not she's going to lay an egg that's going to grow up to be a male or a female? And she makes that choice really based on the needs of the hive. So like I said, males only make up 2 to 3% of that population. So if we already have enough males and that number is met or that threshold is met, then she won't continue to lay males. Does that make sense? The difference is whether or not that egg is fertilized or not. She can decide to lay an egg that's fertilized or an egg that's not. An egg that's not fertilized grows up to be a drone. An egg that is fertilized grows up to be a female or a worker bee, or potentially another queen. Okay, let me know if you got anything else. I'm going to move into the presentation. So my name is Mika. You can just call me Mika. My company is called the Herban Bee, and what we do is we specialize in urban beekeeping. So we typically beekeep in at-risk areas. We beekeep in food deserts. We support food security. And one of the major things that we do is support the Clara White Mission downtown that is responsible for feeding many people who are not fortunate enough to be able to have a lot of food. And so we provide the bees that grows the produce that fuels the produce for that organization. So that's one of the things we do. We do a lot of bee removals, just a lot of cool things with bees. We take the wax and make this and that, candles, soaps, lotions, you name it, we make it. All righty, so today we're going to talk about 5 lessons that kids can learn from bees. 5 things that we can learn from bees. Now, there are tons of things that we can learn from bees, but we're just going to talk about 5. If you know some things that we can learn from bees, feel free to share, because I know I've got some great bee experts in the audience. Okay, London, I see your hand. Hold on one second and I'll get right to you. All righty, so the first thing that I want to talk about is that we are all a part of a global community. Does anybody know what community means? What is a community? Right there. I can't see your name tag. I didn't get your name before the program. Oh, I
It
did.
means a lot of people in one place.
A lot of people in one place. Right, right. So we have tiny communities and then bigger communities. We can say Jacksonville is a community, or we can say your neighborhood is a community. But the thing that really is the thing we want to remember about community today is that we're all a part of it. But humans aren't the only part of a community. Insects are a part of the community. Our pets are also a part of the community. How many people have pets? Yep, me too, right? They're a part of our community. And bees are also a part of our community. And the thing about a community too is that what impacts one part or one person of the community probably also impacts another part of the community. So in the case of bees, if the water that we're taking in is healthy and good and full of nutrients or minerals, then that translates over to bees and they're healthy. But if the food that we're consuming or the flowers that we're smelling or growing are not healthy, then that translates to bees too. So when we live our lives and we plant our gardens and we take care of our yards, we have to all think about the fact that everything we do impacts the community, not just us as an individual, okay? All righty, so let's get to the first thing that we learned from bees. Great, and how do I do that? Oh, fine, okay. So the first thing that we can learn is sharing. Do you think bees share? What are some of the things that bees share? Anya? Oh, got you already, Anya. Let's get Dia. Bees share honey. Shayla,
I was gonna say honey too.
you were gonna say honey too? Oh, yeah, that's right. Jordan,
Bees share nectar.
bees share nectar. Very good. So those are very important points because when a bee, we have a hand over here. When bees go out and they gather food for their community, do you think that food is just for that one particular bee or is it for the community? What do you think? Shayla, give Shayla a sticker. Do you think that that nectar is for that one particular bee or do you think that bee shares with the community?
They share their home.
They share their home. Very good. That's another thing that they share. So that's important because if a bee went out to get resources and they felt like they were only going to utilize those resources for themselves, this nectar is just for me, the hive wouldn't be able to function. Jordan, I forgot.
Bees share honey or flowers too.
Bees share flowers. That's another important thing to know. Bees share flowers, and flowers continue to produce nectar. So what happens is as long as that flower is blooming, there's a continuous source of nectar. So when we see a flower in full bloom, we know that not just one bee can eat from that flower, but a lot of bees can eat from that flower. And of course, they share. Our next slide shows bees doing just that. Now tell me what these bees are sharing. What are they sharing? Anybody? We got our mic handler on skates.
Honey.
They are sharing honey, right? And so we like honey as people, but how does honey relate to bees? Do bees use honey? Macy?
They share it to help people.
That is a great point. That's a great point. Bees share their honey.
A hive of bees is made of honey.
What do you say?
The hive of bees is made of honey.
There's a lot of honey in the hive for sure. And so that honey really primarily is their food source. Go ahead. Because I'm really surprised. I didn't think I didn't think you was gonna say much.
Wow.
They make the wax.
Oh, very good. Yes,
They make the wax.
So honey is primarily a food source for bees. And so you see bees go out to all these flowers in the spring and the early summer, and they're collecting nectar, 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 nectar. They then take that nectar back to the hive. They fan it with their wings, dehydrate it, and then it turns into honey or it becomes honey. And that honey is their food source to get them through the winter in the deep fall when nothing is blooming. So as a beekeeper, when we go in to collect honey, we never take so much honey that they're not left with any food. And that goes back to the thought on community, right? Because bees are a part of our community. We don't want to take so much from them that they're left without the resources that they need to survive. So the first thing that we learn about bees from bees is about sharing. Next thing we learn from bees is working together. Do you think bees work together well? How many bees do you think are in a hive? How many, if you had to guess? Dia? 1,000?
1,000.
1,000? What do you say, Jordan?
50,000.
50,000? That's close. To the left? Oh.
60,000.
60,000.
752.
Okay. So
Six
all,
thousand 752. Very
all of the numbers that you all gave are completely possible. A hive really could have 1,000 bees, or it could have 50,000 bees. My hives most likely have about 40,000 bees. So that's 40,000 individual organisms that have to all work together. When you look in the hives, you don't see traffic jams typically. You see just what you see on this video. Bees diligently getting their tasks done, but working around each other to make that happen. And so an example of bees working together is going back to their collecting nectar. So different bees in the hive have different jobs. And the oldest, most experienced bees go out and collect the nectar. So if you think about a hive like this, right in the center of the hive would be the most inexperienced bees. That's when your new bees are being born, your baby bees are typically in the center. And then as the bees grow up, they start taking on different responsibilities and for different tasks, and those tasks take them to the outside of the hive. So your oldest, most experienced bees are on the outside of the hive, and those are the bees that protect the hive and defend the hive. Those are the bees that go and collect resources for the hives. So bees work together in that way. When they get older, they graduate to the next task. When they get done with that task, they graduate to the next task. And when it comes to collecting nectar, the oldest bees go out and collect the nectar. They bring it back to the hive, and then they pass it off to another bee. And then that bee takes the ball, and on and on and on. And that's typically how bees do tasks. They're very collaborative in nature. Okay, so that's the second thing we learn from bees. The next thing that we learn from bees is dancing. How many people like to dance? How many of you like to dance? I know I like to dance. How many people think they're a good dancer? My hand stays up. I think I'm a good dancer. I really do. And so bees dance as well. Bees dance as a means of communication. They do something called a waggle dance. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but oh, you just saw it on the video. Yeah. This is a bee dancing to communicate. And those dances get very, very vigorous. This is a calm dance. I mean, they can really get into their dancing. And they dance to communicate several things. I'll get right back with you. No, Shayla. They dance to communicate several things. So let's say that a bee is out foraging and they identify a bunch of flowers with a ton of nectar. They're going to go back to the hive and they do a dance to tell the rest of the bees where to go get that nectar. Or let's say that the bees have become displaced for some reason. They get in the front and they do a dance very similar to what you see here as an indication for the other bees to come. So they do dances to communicate direction, to communicate where resources are, to communicate where food is. So dancing is the third thing that we learn from bees. Let's move on to number 4. The fourth thing that we learn from bees is being a hard worker. Have you all heard the term busy as a bee? You're busy as a bee. Yeah. So bees are very, very busy and they are very, very hardworking. Sometimes bees work up to 12 hours a day outside looking for food sources, not just for themselves, but again, also for their community. So number 4 thing that we learn from bees is that they are very hardworking. Number 5. Oh, well, let's watch the video on them working hard. They are working hard, buddy. Yeah. Okay, number 5. The 5th thing that we learn from bees that we're going to talk about here today is that bees make the world a beautiful place. Now, when I was talking to some of you earlier, you all said the word, a few of you knew the word or the process that really makes this beautiful transformation happen. Does anybody know that word? London? Oh, and then let's get her. I think we missed her several times. Yeah. Yes.
Pollination.
Yes, ma'am. One up, 2 rows up. Girls on the Run. Girls on the Run t-shirt. Pollination. Right. So does anybody want to tell me just briefly what pollination is? Do you know, Kevin?
Bees go to flower and pollinate the flowers, and some of the pollen that gets stuck on them goes to different flowers.
Very good, Kevin. I don't know why you said that with a question mark in your voice, because you are exactly right. You know what pollination is. Does anybody want to add to that? Does anybody else know what pollination is?
They go to flowers and just collect more and more and more.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else? London is dying to tell us.
When the honey is collected, when the pollen's collected, or the nectar, whatever, basically the bees fly over to go get some other stuff, but some of the nectar drops down onto the plants, helping them grow.
Okay, thank you. So what all of you were describing is a process in which bees go from flower to flower to flower to flower. And oftentimes, as they're going from flower to flower, what they're looking for most often is nectar. But because bees have a lot of hair and places to stick to on their body, something attaches to them. Sometimes it's intentionally kept in pockets on their back legs, but oftentimes, especially with native bees, it's just attached to their body. And they take it from flower to flower to flower. Who knows what that is? Another P word right here.
Pollination.
Pollen, very good. Pollen, right? And that's why we call it pollination, because they're taking that pollen from flower to flower to flower to flower. And the end result of that is what? Why is it important that bees are taking pollen from flower to flower? What does that do?
It helps the flower grow.
It helps the flower grow. Very good.
It makes honey.
Okay. Anybody else?
They work together.
They do work together. Thank you. Blue and white shirt.
I just forgot.
You just forgot? Took too long, Lord.
Makes food for humans.
It makes food for humans.
It makes food for humans. Hello. Very good. Very good. Hunter?
They help make flowers to make the earth a better place.
They certainly help make the world a better place. Very good. So that process of pollination is taking pollen from flower to flower to flower. And as that pollen goes from place to place to place, like somebody said, I can't remember who, in very simplified terms, it makes that plant or that flower healthier, better, grow, reproduce. And so we're able to get more and more and more beautiful flowers because these bees are so hardworking in visiting these flowers and spreading that pollen from place to place to place to place. Now, did you know that there are places on the earth right now where people have to hand pollinate because the bees are not there? Yeah, there are places right now where people have to walk around with, I'll just use a pencil to demonstrate, but people walk around with a long stick that has something kind of furry on the end. And they take that long stick, especially when they want to produce food. So for something like a pear tree, they will go to that tree and go from flower to flower to flower to flower to flower. Now, a bee can do that efficiently. Honeybees are really one of the most efficient pollinators in nature. So of course, a human doing that is going to be much slower and not as effective as a bee would be. But that's reason to be aware of our environment and make sure that we have an environment that is bee friendly. So we want to make sure that when we are taking care of our yard, everybody wants a beautiful yard. I know I want a beautiful yard. And if you live in a neighborhood like I live in, my HOA is going to make sure that I have a beautiful yard. But we want to be conscious about the products that we use and that we spray, particularly on flowers, because we wouldn't want to put anything on flowers that in turn is going to make bees sick, right? Because again, we're all part of one, what? Community. Very good. Okay, now let's talk about something that bees give us that we all enjoy. We've talked about it some. Yell it out. Honey. Okay. So why do you think honey is good, other than the fact that it tastes good, which is an excellent reason? Do you think honey is good for any other reason? Do you think it helps us? What do you think? Not London, but London's sister, Lona?
It has sugar in it.
It definitely has fructose and glucose in it. Yep, very good. Yep. You can get Anya right there.
It helps us when we're sick.
Helps us when we're sick. Very good. It helps us when we're sick. Honey, a Mayo Clinic study proved that honey is just as effective as cough syrup when you have a cough. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. My time is up. Thank you so much for coming. Any questions that you have about bees and you want to ask me after the presentation, you can come and talk to me after the presentation. If you didn't get a sticker, come see me. I'm sticker rich. I've got a sticker for you. Okay. All righty. Thank you so much for your attention. You were just know so much about bees. You guys were awesome. And just remember, be awesome.